Joe Rogan just sent a warning to the welterweight division. Islam Makhachev is coming. Sure, he's beaten legends, but does his dominance at lightweight really mean he can step up and crush the welterweights too? In this video, we're breaking it all down. We'll show you why Rogan is so high on Makhachev. We'll also compare their resumes side by side. Islam's suffocating submission of Charles Oliveira versus Ilia's jaw-dropping first-round KO, and ask the big question: if Islam and Ilia ever collide in a super fight, who walks out of the octagon with their hand raised? Stick around, because this isn't just about Islam moving up or Ilia climbing higher. This is about two of the most dangerous fighters in the UFC right now, possibly on a collision course. And if Rogan's warning is right, welterweights aren't the only ones who should be worried. How good is Islam Makhachev really? If you ask Joe Rogan, the answer is simple. Islam isn't just good, he's one of the most complete fighters we've ever seen in the UFC. And when you break down what he's done, it's hard to argue. The first thing Rogan always points out is size. For a man who somehow makes 155 pounds, Islam looks huge inside the cage. Broad shoulders, thick frame, massive back. It's almost unbelievable that he cuts down to lightweight. And that size matters, because when he locks onto an opponent, it's not just technique keeping them down, it's leverage, it's power, and it's the kind of control that drains fighters mentally as much as physically. But here's the part people overlook. Islam is no longer just a grappler. In the early days of his career, he leaned heavily on wrestling and sambo. But over the last few years, his striking has leveled up dramatically. He outboxed Dustin Poirier in exchanges. He dropped Charles Oliveira. And then there was the moment that shocked everyone, the head kick knockout of Alexander Volkanovski. That wasn't luck. That was setup. Body kicks, body kicks, body kicks. And then when Volk expected another shot to the ribs, Islam went high and ended the fight instantly. That's what makes him terrifying. He doesn't have a hole in his game anymore. On the feet, he can time you, hurt you, and even finish you. On the ground, he can suffocate you, strangle you, or ride out control without giving you an inch of space. He can beat you in a 5-round grind, or he can shut the lights out in one strike. Rogan calls him as good as it gets, and when you look at the resume, it backs it up. Charles Oliveira, one of the most dangerous submission artists in UFC history, submitted by Islam in under 2 rounds. Dustin Poirier, a veteran striker with knockout power, controlled and finished. And Alexander Volkanovski, who many believed was the best pound-for-pound fighter in the sport, beaten not once, but twice, including that brutal head kick finish on short notice. What separates Islam is how efficiently he wins. He doesn't waste energy. He doesn't fight sloppy. Every move is calculated. Every transition is clean. He's calm under pressure, never rushing, never panicking. He's like a machine in there, slowly breaking you down while staying 2 steps ahead. And that's why Rogan, and many others, believe Islam is such a nightmare at welterweight. If he's this dominant against elite lightweights, how does a welterweight stop him when he carries the same power, the same control, and now doesn't have to drain his body cutting to 155? That's the danger. So just how good is Islam Makhachev? He's the most complete fighter on the roster right now. He's proven he can outstrike strikers, outgrapple grapplers, and finish legends in ways nobody else could. Lightweight hasn't had an answer. And if Rogan's right, welterweight might not either. And that's where the conversation shifts. Because as dominant as Islam has been, fans can't stop asking, what about Ilia Topuria? Ilia has exploded onto the scene in a way that feels almost unreal. In just a handful of fights, he's built a resume that stacks up against some of the greatest names in the sport. He's not just beating opponents, he's finishing them, and finishing them fast. Max Holloway, Alexander Volkanovski, Charles Oliveira, all legends, all stopped by Ilia inside of 25 total minutes. That's less than a single 5-round fight. Nobody else has done that. His knockout of Charles at UFC 317 might have been his scariest moment yet. Charles looked sharp early, pressuring, feinting, even shooting for a takedown. But the second Ilia found his shot, it was lights out. A clean right hand, followed by a left hook for good measure, and Oliveira was unconscious before he hit the canvas. To put that in perspective, Islam submitted Charles, yes, but no one had ever flatlined him like that. Ilia did it in round 1 exactly as he predicted. That's the difference with Topuria. He fights with a kind of ruthless efficiency that makes it feel like the outcome is inevitable. He doesn't waste punches. He doesn't gas out hunting for a finish. He stays composed, picks his spot, and when he finds it, the fight is over. That's what has fans saying his rise might be even scarier than Islam's reign. But here's where things get interesting. Islam represents control, calculated pressure, suffocation, and a slow dismantling. Ilia represents chaos, explosive boxing, knockout precision, and the ability to end everything with one clean shot. One fighter takes your air away piece by piece. The other snatches it in an instant. And that's why fans are obsessed with the idea of them meeting. Because it's not just a clash of two great fighters, it's a clash of two philosophies. Can Ilia's knockout power break through Islam's suffocating control? Or will Islam drag Ilia into the deep waters he's never had to swim in before? And that leads us perfectly into the last question. Who really has the edge in a potential super fight? Islam or Ilia? On paper, it's a dream matchup. Islam brings years of dominance, a well-rounded game, and that signature Dagestani pressure. Ilia brings speed, power, and the kind of knockout precision that makes even legends crumble. It's control versus chaos, the marathoner versus the sprinter. If this fight happens, the key comes down to who sets the tone first. If Islam gets an early takedown, it could look like every other Dagestani masterclass. Tight control, heavy top pressure, and no room for Ilia to use his striking. Ilia has never faced someone with the kind of suffocating grappling Islam brings. And if he spends too much time on his back, his knockout power becomes irrelevant. That's the danger of fighting Islam. He makes great strikers look ordinary, but flip the script, and it gets just as interesting. If Ilia can keep it standing, every second becomes a risk for Islam. Topuria doesn't need 5 rounds. He needs one clean punch. We've seen what happens when his shots land. Volkanovski, Holloway, Oliveira, fighters known for durability, put away in minutes. That's power you can't ignore, even if you're as dominant as Islam. So who has the edge? Experience leans toward Islam. He's been in 5-round wars. He's held the belt, and he's proven himself against multiple generations of champions. But explosiveness leans toward Ilia. He hasn't just won, he's torn through elite names in record time, with the kind of finishing ability Islam hasn't faced yet. And that's why this fight is so compelling. It's not a mismatch. It's not hype. It's two of the most dangerous fighters in the world, each bringing a style that could completely shut the other down. So the real question isn't who's better overall, it's who can impose their game first. If Islam gets his hands on Ilia early, it could be a long, grinding night. But if Ilia keeps it on the feet, it might be over before Islam even has the chance to adjust. That's why Rogan's warning hits so hard. Welterweights need to worry about Islam right now, but if this super fight ever becomes reality, Islam might be the one with something to worry about. And that's what makes this moment in MMA so electrifying. Islam Makhachev has already proven he's the most complete fighter in the UFC today. He's beaten legends in their primes, defended his belt against pound-for-pound greats, and shown that he can win any way he wants, by knockout, by submission, or by suffocating control. He's the quiet storm that's ruled lightweight for years. But now, standing across from that legacy is Ilia Topuria, a man who isn't just winning fights, he's erasing legends in minutes. Volkanovski, Holloway, Oliveira, all finished in under 25 total minutes. That's unheard of. And the way he does it, calm, precise, efficient, makes it feel inevitable. When he finds his shot, it's over. So the question becomes, when control meets chaos, who bends? Who breaks? Does Islam drag Ilia into the deep waters nobody's tested him in? Or does Ilia land that one perfect shot that even Islam can't prepare for? This isn't just about two fighters. It's about legacies colliding. If Islam conquers welterweight and then comes back down to silence Ilia, he cements himself as one of the greatest of all time. But if Ilia shocks the world and knocks out the man nobody else could figure out, he instantly becomes the UFC's new face of dominance. That's why Rogan's warning hits different. It's not just welterweights who should be worried. It's the entire UFC roster. Because when these two forces finally meet, we won't just be watching a fight. We'll be watching history. If you enjoyed this breakdown, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop a comment. Who do you think wins, Islam or Ilia? Let's settle this debate. Settle this debate.